From CGTN headquarters in Beijing, this is The Hub with Wang Guan.
Hello and welcome to The Hub. I'm Wang Guan in Beijing. The Middle East is once again in focus as relations between the United States and Iran enter a more complex and delicate moment. The United States has deployed a naval force led by the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier strike group to the region amid warnings of possible military action. At the same time, both sides have signaled limited openness to diplomatic engagement, even as deep disagreements persist. What do these developments mean for stability, for diplomacy, and for the broader international order? To explore all these questions, we're joined by Bobby Naderi in London. He's a journalist and political commentator. In Beijing, we have Zhou Rong, senior analyst at Chongyang Institute for Financial Studies at Renmin University. And also joining us in our Beijing studio is Einar Tangen, senior fellow at the Center for International Governance Innovation and chairman of the Asia Narratives Substack. Gentlemen, welcome back to The Hub. Bobby, let me turn to you. President Trump said he hopes a deal can be reached with Iran, although that there could be bad outcomes if there aren't going to be any deals. Meanwhile, Iran confirmed that the order of engaging with the Americans in the nuclear talk comes directly from the president. What can come out of these talks, should it happen in Turkey?
Obviously, both sides want options on the table, all options. Diplomacy if possible, force if necessary. And we know that the bigger the pressure, the smaller the political space for compromise. I mean, think about it. Trump didn't bring all those warships from South China Sea or Venezuela just for a show. It's not about the show. He means what he says, and he says what he means. And as his cabinet members have made it absolutely clear to Iran that Trump is serious, so take him seriously. On the other hand, Iran has also made similar threats. It has said that if there is a war on Iran, it is going to spread across the region. And that means other countries are also going to be involved. And that means Iran is going to attack many bases in the region that are hosting the U.S. military personnel. If that happens, I'm afraid things are going to get out of control. And if it gets out of control, more things are going to happen. There will be no hope for diplomacy. We know that many regional countries are desperate to get these two war parties at the negotiating table. So far, they have faith. We hear one day that yes, they are going to meet. The other day, they renounce these kind of media talks, and they said that there is no such a thing as we are going to meet. So as I told you, diplomacy if possible and force if necessary is the word of the day these days. But make no mistakes, a mutually acceptable deal is still possible if Tehran and Washington reduce threats, engage in structural talks, and allow the mediators in the region and beyond to help bridge deep mistrust. Until that happens, we will see more military rhetoric by both sides.
Mistrust or reducing mistrust is really key here. Professor Zhou, do you think these talks in Istanbul between Iran and the United States can ease their mistrust, can lead to something concrete, both satisfying the American end of, uranium never be enriched to an extent of making a nuclear bomb, and for the Iranians to, for the Americans to lift the sanctions on Iran, which have been going on for like forever?
Thank you, Mr. Wang. I think one of the important things we can see the things are very different from 35 years ago when Iraq's Saddam Hussein just tried to, do confrontation with the United States. Almost all the regional countries supported America. But this time, all we can see the UAE and Saudi Arabia and Egypt and as well as the Qatar and Turkey, they all wanted the United States to stop, to remove its decision of attacking Iran. And also, I can see the signs of de-escalation because recently we can see the the oil price right now is gone. So it's much better than before. I think that they are very serious. I mean, both United States and Iran are very serious for this negotiation, but may not satisfy each other. But Iran may be ready to do some compromise, such as transfer some enriched uranium abroad, and also maybe just complete hold, and all the enrichment of the uranium immediately. Then I do not know whether Trump can accept this kind of compromise from Iran, but I think that's one thing Iran cannot give up. That is, they will still maintain their missiles program, and they will not just stop the last defense means. But anyway, both sides want to get a platform to step down, not to just escalate the current crisis, the tension. But actually, I'm cautious, optimistic about the near future.
It has been a while since America and Iran engaged in talks, and most recently, White House envoy, President Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, and the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi are reportedly meeting in Istanbul, Turkey on February the 6th, a couple of days from now, to discuss a possible nuclear deal that is according to Axios, who usually has very deep connections with the White House and the Washington establishment. So, Einar, what do you think can come out of these talks?
Well, I'm going to disagree with my other colleagues here. I think the master of distraction is at work. Donald Trump, while we're discussing this, we're not discussing the 3.5 million pages of the Epstein files. This is something deep. Well, let's look at the situation. What has Iran done lately that would trigger this kind of response? If they had announced that they had a nuclear program or were sending missiles into the sea, I could understand it. But this has come only because Netanyahu and a number of his chief generals have been visiting Washington. They have been sounding the alarm bell that somehow Iran has a nuclear program. But don't we recall that Donald Trump said that they had ended the Iranian nuclear threat with the bombardment of these different facilities? So why is it? I can only come to one conclusion, that this is part of an ongoing program to distract the American public and the international press. Remember, 24 hours before the big tranche, over 3 million pages were released, he sent out a state of emergency on Cuba. What has Cuba done to the United States lately that would be an imminent threat? Nothing. Nothing has changed. The country is in terrible economic shape. But he identified not only Cuba as a threat, but he directly said that China and Russia are a threat. Now, what is the likelihood that the United States wants to go to war in its own hemisphere, in the Middle East, in South China Seas, while it's also dealing with Russia and Gaza? Not likely. So once again, I would have to differ with my colleagues. This is about distraction. I do not think anything goes forward from here. It would be devastating to his internal politics. The American public, his base, is not happy about the fact that he's spending his efforts overseas when they feel that they're being hit by high prices and that foreign adventures were not on the menu when he said when he was elected.
Also, if you look at what happens in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and other states protesting a federal, what's seen as a federal overreach to state power, wrapping up people. Now, Professor Zhou, do you agree?
I think that we should still be cautiously optimistic about the future. Let's say one thing, that is Cuba cannot compare to Iran. Cuba has no resources, but Iran's resources, oil resources, very huge, and which not only if United States attack Iran, may also influence the regional countries such as Kuwait, UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, even Oman and Bahrain. So there are so many military bases in the Gulf countries. So if there's a war, what I'm saying, the war of expansion, then the United States, all the Navy bases and the air bases, as well as army bases, will be the target of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards. And if there is a war between Iran and America, there will be no limit. And compared with Israel, Iranian people, the psychological mind are much more stronger than Israel. Israel last time only suffered 28 people. 28 people died from the 12 days war. Iran just suffered 1,000 casualty, but Iran's people's mind are much more hard and powerful than Israel. Israel worried more about the war, and that is the retaliation from Iran against the American preemptive strike on Iran. So I don't really think that things are so pessimistic. I think that still we can see some of the opportunity for maintaining the peace.
Bobby, in London, do you see opportunities or windows of opportunity for potential peace instead of another round of military actions by Washington against Iran?
Absolutely. From one hand, I don't believe that you send all the American military assets to the Persian Gulf for distraction. That is not the case. The playbook for distraction happened when Trump claimed that he wanted to take over Greenland in order to get the European military forces on board, which he successfully did. So that was distraction. But sending ships to the Persian Gulf, it's not about distraction. He means business. He wants to start a war, and he's going to go all to the end if there is no diplomatic compromise. Coming to your question, yes, there is hope at the end of the day, because there is no winner. There is no winner in this conflict and escalation. No regional country is going to benefit. Iran is going to lose big time. It's going to lose its structures, its energy infrastructure. It's now diplomatically isolated globally. We also know that America is not going to win, because if something happens to the energy hubs in the Middle East, I'm afraid the prices of oil are going to go through the roof. And one of the countries that is going to, one of the regions that is going to lose big is Europe. And if that happens, America is going to lose its NATO allies in its military campaign against Iran. So this is a lose-lose situation. Nobody is going to win. Knowing that, I think there is a still window, there is an opportunity for compromise. Iran knows it better than anyone else that it is isolated, internally and externally. So it makes a geopolitical sense for Iran to sit down for talks with the United States and avoid a military confrontation that we know is going to destroy the region.
So you're mostly saying that the U.S. military presence in the Middle East, in the Gulf regions right now, is primarily about deterrence and increasing U.S. leverage at the negotiating table?
Absolutely, because think about it. America brought all those military assets from the South China Sea. Why? South China Sea, if you're asking me, it's more important than the Persian Gulf. But America took that risk to bring all those warships to the Middle East. I think it means business. They want to do something about Iran. They want to do it as quickly as possible. Why? Because if they defeat Iran, if they control Iran, if they control the flow of energy from the Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf, they can easily control China and Russia. If they do that, if they take over Iran, they can easily supply energy to Europe and stop the European countries from begging for energy from Russia. This way, they can also bring Russia under control and even end the war in Ukraine. So think about it. If Iran falls and America takes control of the whole region, then we have bad news. We have bad news for Russia and, of course, China, because at the end of the day, America is desperate to win the economic war against China. To do just that, it needs to control the energy hubs in the Middle East. And until that happens, until the Iranian regime falls, we still have a long way to go.
Well, Einar, what do you think? Is this a grand strategy of Donald Trump, aiming eventually and ultimately at Russia and China? With the Maduro, blackmailing, what the West called capture, and now, moves against Iran. Is this eventually aiming at China?
No, I'm going to have to sharply disagree with my colleague in London. I don't believe anything he says, especially when he says that the U.S. is diverting resources from the South China Seas as if that is more important. It's not more important. There's no war being threatened there. There's nothing going on. If he wants to peddle this idea that this is China's opportunity to take over Taiwan, I would firmly reject that. What you have here is simply Donald Trump doing diversion. He cannot afford, and I agree with both my colleagues, to go to war on this. And he certainly is not going to control the Middle East. No one's been able to control it, period. The idea that the U.S. is going to put boots on the ground, which would be necessary in order to kind of follow this fairy tale that the U.S. wants to control these areas. We want to control things economically. We want to control oil, yes, but the cost of trying to do it directly is way too high.
If you look at the positions of other Gulf states, it's more delicate. Most Gulf states spoke out against using their countries as bases, as launching pads against Iran, although some Gulf countries have been the staunchest allies of the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they don't see, there's no win for them. If there's a war and the Straits of Hormuz are bottled up, you're talking about a good percentage of all the oil. That means revenues are cut off. It also means that Iran's revenues are cut off. There's no winner here. And that's the whole point. Iran has not done anything in the last, 120 days that would merit what we are seeing here. In terms of moving assets around, Donald Trump took the ICE agency budget from $6 billion to somewhere between $79 and $85 billion in 1 year. So moving assets around, spending money is not something that he particularly cares about. He wants to increase the military budget to $1.5 trillion. So this idea that he moves things around for purpose, no, he does it for show, just like everything else.
So there could be some military actions, even
there isn't
limited or precision strikes or whatever it may come.
Yeah, he might decide to throw a few bombs at Tehran or some agreed upon non-volatile place so that he can claim victory and say that I got what I want. I don't think that there's going to be any kind of serious negotiations because there's nothing to negotiate about. This idea that Iran is going to give up their missile program when they're being threatened, when they feel they're being threatened by Israel, come on. That's not serious. The idea, supposedly their nuclear threat is gone. So why are we there? This is the overriding question neither of my colleagues have addressed.
Mm-hmm. Professor Zhou, the West has long accused Iran of having the intention and the capacity of building a nuclear bomb. Iran fiercely denied that. The Iranian authorities that we have interviewed over the years denied that. They claim that these are for peaceful purposes, for electricity, for medical reasons. What do you think? I mean, what are some of the legitimate concerns coming from the Iranian side that the West has been ignoring?
I think one of the important things, Iran wants the negotiation, do not want the war. We do not know one thing, that is whether when they are attacked by the United States, they are determined to do the, what we say, the all retaliation, including striking back all the American military bases in the Gulf country and the Middle East, and also whether they will just do preemptive strike against Israel. We do not know. But right now, the warning is continuing. I'm still a little bit optimistic. And just now, one of our guests said, you see, there's nothing to be negotiating. I don't really think so. I think Iran is ready to do some compromise with the United States. And hopefully that if Trump just only did do some bomb attack, I don't really think the result will be like what they expect. So they wanted some more, something outside the current Iranian revolutionary region. It's very difficult to complete through one-time strike. And how long? And whether they have already calculated the catastrophe about the Iranian retaliation. But what we do not know is whether Iran has decided to do retaliation or not yet, or just accept some such kind of deal themselves. But anyway, let's wait and see. Thank you.
Yeah. Bobby, what do you think Iran wants in the short term and in the long term?
Well, Iran wants a lot of things, but Iran has crossed many red lines. We know that the massacre that happened in Iran has hugely impacted its legitimacy at home. People don't want the current regime. That's a problem. For the same reason, we see so many protests across the globe. So the first thing that Iran wants is to have some kind of peace and understanding and negotiations with its own people. That is not happening right now. We have this problem for Iran. On the other hand, Iran is diplomatically isolated. The IRGC has now been listed and designated as a terrorist organization, which means many countries are no longer able to do business with Iran because they will be sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury and even the European Union. So if you're asking me, Iran wants regional security. Iran wants no further escalation, because this way it can focus more on its own internal problems. But until that happens, Iran is going to be still under immense pressure. So I'm afraid if this conflict, this escalation gets out of control, we will see persistent regional insecurity, a risk of wider escalation. We will see more pressure on alliances and diplomatic order. We will see more economic and energy market disruptions across not just the Middle East, but across the globe. And last but not least, humanitarian crisis. If that happens, as your distinguished guest made it absolutely clear, we will see many more losers than winners. So Iran wants some kind of understanding and talks, not just with the United States, but now with the European Union also, because many embassies have closed their doors in Iran. Many, some Iranian ambassadors have been kicked out of the Western capitals, like Canada, like the European Union, like Australia, and it is going to get worse. But if Iran wants some kind of understanding and diplomacy with the West, I think it needs to make some painful compromises. That means it has to allow the IAEA fully control and supervise and monitor its nuclear activities. The US wants the nuclear program gone. That's what Trump wants. Trump also says that I don't want Iran to have any long-range missiles. These are red lines for Iran. Iran has spent billions and billions and billions of dollars to build and expand these two important programs. Now Iran is being asked to make painful compromises and get rid of these two important programs. I think that is a problem. Iran cannot do that, because if it does, then there will be more internal pressure on the side of the people. They will ask for more. On the other hand, it will be more diplomatically isolated. So, I mean, it's a catch-22. If there is talks and Iran makes compromises, it will collapse from within. It will implode. If no, it will be attacked by the United States and its allies. I'm afraid I don't see any good future for the region for the time being, unless all sides come to their senses and make some painful compromises. And we haven't seen that. There is no sign for that.
Yeah, Professor Zhou, you want to say something?
Yes, I think it's a very important thing that we must recognize the importance of all the mediator. You know, Turkey are the allies of the United States in the NATO, and the UAE and Egypt has diplomatic ties with Israel. Qatar is always the mediator countries. They will just give the pressure for both the United States and Iran. And I think this time is very different. All the regional countries do not feel Iran is a threat. All the regional countries do not hope America and Israel strike Iran. This kind of element, we should also take it into consideration. Thank you.
I mean, that's a good point, isn't it, Einar? I mean, the Middle East 2-3 years ago was, visibly moving towards what we call a greater détente in the Middle East with the establishment of relations between Saudi Arabia and Iran, and later Saudi Arabia and Syria, relations restored, so on and so forth. China played a very important role mediating between these great powers in the Middle East. And now what next?
Well, I agree with Professor Zhou. I mean, this is a situation where he's just asked the question that I do. Why are they doing it? The Middle East countries have signaled very loudly, very clearly, do not do this. There's no winners. We don't understand why you're doing it. So the question keeps coming back to why is the U.S. doing it? And I can only think of one reason, and that's deflection away from his domestic issues, not only in Minneapolis, but around the United States, inflation, the fact that his political base is fracturing, and then you have the whole situation internationally and with the Epstein files. So, yeah, I agree. This is a situation where the U.S. cannot afford to go forward. I do not agree with my London colleague that this is headed towards doom. As I said, Trump is looking for some way to de-escalate, declare victory, and then sail his ships back to the Caribbean or wherever he wants to next create another crisis that can deflect more attention.
And historically, the midterm elections do not bode well for the sitting president's party, that is GOP right now. Trump could lose both the Senate and the House coming November, and that will make him a lame duck president.
Well, he's going to lose them, and by huge amounts. I mean, if you start looking at the independents, you cannot win an election in the United States with your party alone. You have to get the independents. The independents are overwhelmingly against him, especially on these domestic issues. None of them understand why he's concentrating so much of his time and energy on international issues when there are issues at home. So he's going to lose. The question is, will he do something to interfere with the election process, declare a war, say that the elections were stolen, or just declare that there shall be no elections because there's a state of emergency? This is what is so important about taking notice of the fact that just less than 2 days ago, he declared a state of emergency involving Cuba, naming Russia and China. This should be on everybody's antenna. This is the first time since the Cold War that these countries have been called out by name over something like Cuba. What existential threat does an island that's poor have to the United States?
Yeah, I know. Now, Bobby, you lived in both Iran and the West for the longest time. Anything else you want to share with us? The context regarding Iran, United States animosity that we should understand?
Yes, I think there is some kind of religious war going on at the moment, especially in Europe. And they have come to the conclusion that if they want to win this religious war, especially the Israelis and the Christians, they need to stop Iran. They need to stop Iran as soon as possible. They believe that if Iran falls after a military campaign by the United States and its allies, they can easily win the radical Islamists in the region and the West. So it's not about the internal affairs of the United States only or the problems in Iran and the region. It's also a bigger picture. This religious war has been waged by the Israelis and the Israeli lobby in Washington, especially the Christian Zionists. It is getting out of control in Europe. Many Islamic groups are holding key positions in Europe, and they are affecting policies over there. And all because there is a powerful country like Iran that supports them. And also other regional countries like the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia. So for the radical Islamists to lose, the first fall guy has to be Iran. That's why there is so much pressure and focus on Iran. If Iran falls, they do believe that radical Islam in the West for the first time will be defeated.
Got it. That's all the time we have right now. Thank you so much for tuning in to this live edition of The Hub. See you next time. Thank you, Einar.